Nobody would believe that the German Shepherd chained to that lamppost downtown had once saved dozens of lives. His matted fur told a different story now, one of abandonment, fear, and forgotten heroism. But what happened when a 6-year-old girl recognized him would expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of city government and shake the foundation of everything people believed about justice. If you love stories about courage, redemption, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their four-legged guardians, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next. 3 weeks from this moment, Rex would stand before thousands of people again. But this time, instead of being discarded like trash, he would bring down an entire criminal network and remind them all why some heroes wear badges and others wear fur. Captain Rex. The legend Morrison wasn't just any German shepherd. At 7 years old, he carried more commendations than most human officers would see in a lifetime. His service record was legendary. Dozens of lives saved during Hurricane Katrina search operations, 23 major drug busts, 15 missing person recoveries, and a Medal of Honor from both the NYPD and Department of Homeland Security. 2 years ago, Rex had been honorably retired after a warehouse explosion left him with smoke damage to his lungs. The department had assured everyone he would live comfortably at a specialized care facility for retired service animals. But 8 months ago, Detective Mike Sullivan received devastating news that shattered his world. Rex died from complications related to his lung injury. We had to put him down. I'm sorry, Sullivan. The lie had nearly destroyed the man who'd once been the finest detective in the precinct. Mike walked down Fifth Street with his 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, her small hand warm in his calloused palm. The weekend custody visits were still awkward territories to navigate. Divorce had a way of turning even simple ice cream trips into minefields of unspoken tension and carefully measured words. His PTSD from Afghanistan had cost him his marriage, his confidence, and nearly his career, but Rex had been the one constant that kept him anchored to hope. "Daddy, why don't we have a dog?" Sophie asked, her voice carrying that innocent persistence only children possess. That ability to ask the same question in slightly different ways until they received the answer they wanted. Mike's jaw tightened, a familiar ache spreading through his chest. "Dogs are a big responsibility, sweetheart. They need lots of attention and care." What he couldn't say was that every dog reminded him of Rex, the partner who'd pulled him back from the edge when the nightmares threatened to consume him completely. The loyal companion who'd somehow sensed when Mike needed saving more than anyone else, who'd rest his massive head on Mike's lap during the darkest moments and just breathe steadily until the panic subsided. "But if we had a dog like the police dogs, he could protect us," Sophie continued, oblivious to the pain flickering across her father's weathered face. "You always said Rex was the bravest dog in the whole world. You said he was like a superhero." Was. Past tense. Everything about Rex lived in past tense now, buried under 8 months of grief that Mike had never properly processed. They turned the corner towards Sweetie's ice cream parlor, Sophie chattering excitedly about her week with Mom and the new art project she was working on at school, when she suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. Her small fingers tightened around Mike's hand like a vice, her entire body going rigid with shock. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice transforming from cheerful to utterly heartbroken in the span of a single word. "Look at that poor dog." Mike followed his daughter's gaze and felt the world tilt beneath his feet, reality shifting in a way that made him question his own sanity. Chained to a lamppost with a rusty length of chain that looked like it belonged in a junkyard, sat a German shepherd so broken, so utterly defeated, that Mike almost didn't recognize him. The dog's once proud shoulders sagged under invisible weight, his magnificent frame reduced to skin and bones. His fur, which had once gleamed like polished bronze in the sunlight, now hung in matted, dirty clumps. Ribs showed through his coat like prison bars, and his breathing was shallow, labored. but it was the scar on his left shoulder, a distinctive lightning bolt shape from shrapnel during the warehouse explosion that made Mike's breath catch in his throat and his heart begin to hammer against his ribs. A piece of cardboard leaned against the lamppost, its message scrawled in faded black marker. Free to good home. Gentle giant needs love. Rex, Mike breathed, the name escaping like a prayer torn from somewhere deep in his chest. Sophie looked up at him with wide, questioning eyes. You know him? Really know him? Mike couldn't answer, couldn't process what he was seeing. The dog he'd been told was dead, the partner he'd mourned and grieved and tried desperately to forget, sat 15 feet away, reduced to a ghost of his former magnificent self. As if sensing Mike's presence, Rex slowly lifted his head with obvious effort. Their eyes met across the busy sidewalk, and Mike saw something that shattered his heart into 1,000 pieces. Fear, pure, traumatized fear. Rex was terrified of him. Rex wasn't just alive. He'd been deliberately broken, systematically traumatized into forgetting his past, his training, everything that made him the legendary hero Mike remembered. The proud warrior who charged into burning buildings without hesitation and faced down armed gunmen with unwavering courage, now cowered when Mike took a single step forward, pulling back against the chain until it cut into his neck, leaving raw marks in his fur. Sophie, with the fearless compassion and intuitive wisdom that only children possess, broke away from her father's grip and walked slowly, carefully toward the frightened animal. Hi, beautiful boy, she said softly, her voice like warm honey, kneeling just out of reach so she wouldn't appear threatening. You look so sad and tired. Are you lost? Are you waiting for someone to love you? Something in her gentle tone made Rex's ears twitch, a flicker of interest breaking through the wall of fear and resignation. He lifted his head slightly, studying this small human who spoke without threat, without the harsh commands and cruel words he'd learned to associate with pain and punishment. Sophie, be careful, Mike warned automatically, though every instinct told him this was still Rex, still the dog who'd once played gently with children during community outreach programs. It's okay, she whispered to Rex, extending her hand palm up in the universal gesture of peace. Nobody's going to hurt you anymore, I promise. My daddy's a police officer, and police officers protect good dogs like you. For the first time in months, Rex's tail gave the faintest wag, just a tiny movement that spoke of hope struggling to survive in the darkness. And in that moment, something stirred in his traumatized mind, a distant echo of the hero he used to be. That night, after Sophie had finally fallen asleep clutching a stuffed German shepherd she'd insisted they buy from the toy store, Mike sat in his dimly lit kitchen staring at his laptop screen, the glow casting harsh shadows across his face. The official report glowed back at him in stark black and white. K-9 Officer Rex Morrison, euthanized due to progressive lung complications. Case closed. But Rex wasn't dead. Rex was alive, broken and terrified on the streets, reduced to begging for scraps of human kindness, which meant someone with significant authority and resources had orchestrated an elaborate, carefully planned deception. Mike's fingers flew across the keyboard, his detective training kicking into high gear as he dug deeper into databases he wasn't technically supposed to access without authorization. What he found made his blood run cold and his hands shake with barely controlled rage. Rex's medical records had been systematically altered, and recently, the original files buried deep in archive servers showed his lung damage from the explosion had healed completely within 6 months of retirement, with clean x-rays and glowing health reports from the veterinary specialists. Then suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch, fabricated deterioration reports began appearing, complete with forged veterinary signatures and fake test results showing progressive respiratory failure. But why would anyone go to such elaborate lengths to fake a decorated war dog's death? Mike pulled up Rex's final active case files, scanning through months of routine reports. Drug busts, search and rescue operations, community relations events. Most were standard police work, but one file made him pause and lean closer to the screen. Evidence room inspection, March 15th. Rex had been brought in as part of a routine audit to verify the contents of several high-value drug seizures from recent major busts around the city. His notation in the official report was brief but significant. K9 alerted to substituted substances in storage lockers, 247, 251, and 255. Recommend immediate chemical analysis. Substituted substances. Someone had been systematically stealing confiscated drugs worth millions on the street and replacing them with worthless decoys, probably planning to sell the real narcotics through underground channels. The case had been abruptly closed the very next day with a dismissive note from Deputy Chief Bradley Williams. Audit complete. K9 error confirmed through independent testing. No irregularities found. Case closed. Rex hadn't made an error. His legendary nose never made errors. He'd uncovered a massive evidence tampering operation worth millions of dollars, and someone powerful enough to forge death certificates and alter medical records had made him disappear to protect their criminal enterprise. Mike's phone buzzed against the wooden table, making him jump. A text message from an unknown number, the words appearing on the screen like a cold threat. "Stop digging, Detective Sullivan. Some sleeping dogs are better left alone. Think about your daughter's safety." They were watching him, monitoring his activities, but they'd made one crucial, potentially fatal mistake. They'd threatened the one thing Mike cared about more than his own life, more than justice, more than anything else in the world. Sophie's safety, and that changed everything. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, with golden sunlight streaming through the trees as Mike returned to the lamppost with Sophie and a carefully packed bag of dog treats, fresh water, and a soft blanket. Rex was still there, but something fundamental had shifted overnight. When Sophie approached with her characteristic gentle confidence, he didn't cower or pull away. Instead, he watched her with growing recognition, his intelligent eyes showing the first sparks of the sharp mind that had made him legendary. "He remembers me," Sophie whispered in wonder, her face glowing with pure joy as Rex's tail wagged more enthusiastically, his body language relaxing for the first time since they'd found him. Mike knelt slowly, deliberately making himself smaller and less threatening as he extended his hand palm up, the way he'd been taught during K9 training years ago. "Hey there, buddy. Do you remember me? It's Mike, your old partner." Rex stared at him for a long, tense moment, his head tilted in concentration. Then cautiously, he leaned forward and sniffed Mike's hand, his nostrils flaring as he processed scents and memories. His ears perked up suddenly, and for just an instant, Mike saw a brilliant flash of the old Rex. Alert, intelligent, ready for action, remembering commands and routines, and the bond they'd once shared. Rex's memory was returning in waves and fragments. The systematic trauma hadn't destroyed his exceptional mind. It had simply buried his true self under layers of fear and deliberate conditioning designed to break his spirit. While Sophie gently brushed Rex's matted fur with a small grooming brush she'd brought from home, Mike stepped away to make a crucial phone call to Detective Sarah Chen, his most trusted colleague and the only person in the department he knew he could trust completely. "Sarah, I need you to run a comprehensive background check on Deputy Chief Bradley Williams. Financial records, property holdings, bank accounts, everything you can access. And I need you to be extremely discreet about it." 20 minutes later, Sarah called back with information that made Mike's hands shake and his suspicions crystallize into terrifying certainty. "Williams owns significant property in 3 different states," she reported quietly, her voice tense with the implications of what she discovered, including something called Blackwood Training Facility in upstate New York that's officially registered as a private security dog training center. But Mike, the financial records tell a completely different story. Williams has been making large cash deposits, irregular amounts that precisely match the estimated street value of confiscated narcotics from cases Rex worked on over the past 2 years. He's been selling evidence for profit. It gets worse. The operation is massive, too sophisticated for one person. Williams has financial connections to at least 6 other high-ranking officials, including 2 judges, a prosecutor, and several evidence technicians. Rex didn't just stumble onto a simple theft ring. He uncovered a criminal enterprise that has completely infiltrated multiple levels of the justice system. The conspiracy wasn't just about stolen drugs or personal greed. It was about an entire shadow network of corruption that had systematically compromised the integrity of law enforcement, using their positions of trust and authority to build a criminal empire worth millions of dollars. But Rex didn't know any of this devastating truth yet. He was too busy rediscovering the fundamental concept of trust, one gentle touch at a time, as Sophie whispered stories to him about being brave and strong, and remembering that he was loved and valued and important. Mike watched them and realized something profound that went beyond the criminal investigation. His daughter wasn't just helping Rex heal from trauma, she was giving him back his sense of purpose and identity, restoring his belief in human goodness, one patient moment at a time. Mike's investigation had triggered silent alarms throughout the extensive corruption network, and by Tuesday afternoon, the consequences arrived in the form of a phone call that would change everything. His personal cell phone rang with a number he recognized immediately, and the sound filled him with cold dread. Detective Sullivan came the measured, coldly professional voice of Deputy Chief Bradley Williams. I believe we need to have a serious discussion about your recent extracurricular activities. Williams, Mike replied, quickly activating the call recording feature while signaling to Sarah, who was parked in an unmarked car across the street, monitoring the situation. You've been asking very specific questions about a dead animal, questions that suggest you might be suffering from the same post-traumatic stress and mental health issues that destroyed your marriage and nearly ended your career. Perhaps it's time for another psychological evaluation. Mike forced his voice to remain steady despite the rage building in his chest. Rex isn't dead, and we both know it. Rex Morrison will be permanently dead by sunrise tomorrow morning, and if you don't immediately cease this misguided investigation, your precious daughter might suffer a tragic and completely preventable accident. 6-year-old children can be so careless around busy traffic, can't they? Detective? The line went dead with a sharp click, but Williams had made a catastrophic error in judgment. He just explicitly confessed to conspiracy, evidence tampering, and threatening the life of a child, all recorded on a device that would serve as devastating evidence in court. Mike immediately speed-dialed his ex-wife Jennifer, his heart hammering with parental terror. Where's Sophie right now? She wanted to walk to Riverside Park after school, said she was meeting a friend there. Some story about helping a sad dog. I thought it was just her imagination, but Mike, she's been gone for over 2 hours now, and she's not answering her phone. I've been driving around looking for her, but I can't find her anywhere. Raw terror flooded Mike's nervous system like ice water. Williams had Sophie, and Rex was probably already being transported to wherever they planned to eliminate him permanently. But as Mike and Sarah raced toward Riverside Park with sirens blaring, Mike received an unexpected notification on his phone that would transform everything. Sophie's smartphone had automatically activated its emergency livestream feature, a new safety app Jennifer had installed that triggered when the device detected distress patterns or remained stationary in an unusual location for extended periods. Thousands of viewers across the city were now unknowingly watching a live feed as a man in an official police uniform approached a small girl sitting alone on a park bench in the gathering dusk. But what made Mike's heart simultaneously stop with terror and soar with impossible hope was the magnificent sight of a German shepherd standing protectively between them, no longer cowering or broken. Rex had found her first, and the legendary hero sleeping deep inside him was finally completely awake. The live stream captured every word and movement in crystal clear detail as Williams approached with three other corrupt officers, their weapons drawn but carefully hidden from the camera's view, to maintain the illusion of a routine animal control situation. "That's an extremely dangerous animal, little girl," Williams announced loudly, his voice carrying across the empty park with false authority. "This is animal control. We're here to safely remove this aggressive stray before someone gets seriously hurt." Sophie's small but determined voice rang out clearly through the phone's microphone. "Rex isn't dangerous at all. He's protecting me because he's a real hero, and heroes always protect people who need help." Rex stood at perfect attention now, every muscle coiled with controlled power, every sense hyper-alert and focused. The broken, traumatized dog from the lamppost had completely vanished, replaced by something magnificent and awe-inspiring. A warrior who had not only remembered his true identity, but embraced it with renewed purpose and unshakable determination. Williams raised a tranquilizer gun with practiced efficiency. Dangerous dogs like this can't be trusted around children. They're unpredictable. They attack without warning. But Rex was no longer the same broken animal who had cowered in fear. Standing between Sophie and mortal danger, 7 years of intensive specialized training, genetic instincts, and an unbreakable bond with his human partners flooded back through his consciousness like a dam bursting. Rex's complete memory and abilities returned in a powerful rush of protective instinct. But he wasn't just operating on emotion. His legendary detection skills had identified something crucial about Williams that would provide the final evidence needed to destroy the entire corruption network. When Williams raised the tranquilizer gun toward Sophie, Rex moved with a surgical precision and devastating power that had made him a living legend among law enforcement professionals. He launched himself at Williams with calculated force, striking the weapon from his hand while simultaneously driving him backward into the other corrupt officers with perfectly controlled aggression. But instead of continuing the attack, Rex did something that stunned everyone watching the livestream and demonstrated why he'd earned his reputation as the most intelligent K-9 officer in department history. He immediately returned to Sophie's side, sat at perfect attention, and pointed directly at Williams's jacket with the intense, unwavering focus that only a world-class detection dog could maintain. The same alert posture that had uncovered millions of dollars worth of hidden narcotics during his legendary career. "Search," Sophie said clearly, remembering the command from countless bedtime stories her father had told her about Rex's heroic exploits. Rex immediately moved to Williams and sat again in the classic alert position, indicating with absolute certainty that he had detected something significant hidden in the deputy chief's inner jacket pocket, something that would provide irrefutable proof of everything they suspected. Williams panicked completely, reaching desperately for his service weapon while screaming incoherently about dangerous animals and self-defense. But the live stream was being watched by thousands of viewers now, and police sirens were already converging on the park from every direction as emergency calls flooded dispatch. Mike arrived just as backup units were surrounding Williams and his corrupt associates, all of whom were shouting conflicting stories about routine animal control procedures and self-defense against an aggressive stray dog. But the video evidence was already spreading across social media platforms like wildfire, and the court of public opinion was rendering its verdict in real time. And when investigators searched Williams's jacket, they found a small digital recording device containing dozens of hours of incriminating conversations between corrupt officials, detailing every aspect of their elaborate criminal enterprise, kept as insurance against betrayal by his criminal partners. Rex hadn't just saved Sophie's life and exposed the corruption. He'd handed law enforcement the complete evidence package to dismantle the entire network and restore integrity to the justice system. 3 weeks later, the broadstone steps of City Hall overflowed with media representatives, citizens, federal investigators, and dignitaries who had traveled from across the country to witness something truly unprecedented in law enforcement history. Rex stood at perfect attention in the warm morning sunlight, his magnificent coat restored to its former lustrous glory through weeks of medical care, proper nutrition, and patient rehabilitation. Wearing a brand new service vest emblazoned with the word hero in bold golden letters, the corruption case had exploded into a massive federal investigation spanning 5 states and implicating over 30 officials at various levels of government. Williams and his extensive criminal network were facing decades in federal prison on charges ranging from drug trafficking to evidence tampering to conspiracy and threats against witnesses. The scandal had triggered comprehensive reforms in evidence handling procedures and led to new federal legislation specifically protecting retired service animals from exploitation and abuse. Mayor Patricia Rodriguez stepped forward to the bank of microphones, holding Rex's new official badge, a specially crafted golden shield inscribed with honorary K-9 detective and his service number, as cameras flashed and news crews broadcast the ceremony live across the nation. Rex Morrison has demonstrated that true heroism transcends species boundaries, the mayor announced, her voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd. Today, we honor not only his distinguished past service to our community, but his extraordinary courage in exposing corruption at the highest levels and protecting the innocent when it mattered most. The crowd erupted in sustained applause as Rex was officially reinstated to active status, not as a working patrol K-9, but as the city's first honorary detective and director of the newly established Trauma Recovery Center for both human veterans and retired service animals. Sophie stood proudly beside her father, practically glowing with joy as she held Rex's ceremonial leash. A beautiful golden cord inscribed with Sophie's hero and the date of his heroic return. The bitter custody battle was completely over. Jennifer had withdrawn all legal proceedings after witnessing the extraordinary footage of Mike and Rex working together to protect their daughter from real danger. The video documenting Rex's heroic actions has been viewed over 50 million times across all social media platforms, Mayor Rodriguez continued. But more importantly, it has sparked a nationwide movement to protect retired service animals and eliminate corruption from law enforcement agencies. Mike looked down at his daughter, who was whispering animated secrets to Rex's attentive ears, sharing plans for their weekend adventures, and promising him all the treats and belly rubs a hero dog could ever want. The three of them had discovered something together that none could have found alone. A family forged through unwavering loyalty, tested by systematic betrayal, and ultimately strengthened by the kind of extraordinary courage that inspires legends. As the formal ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Sophie looked up at her father with those wise, compassionate 6-year-old eyes that saw truth more clearly than most adults ever would. "Daddy, Rex was never really broken, was he? He was just waiting patiently for the right moment to be a hero again, wasn't he?" Mike smiled, gently scratching behind Rex's ears as the magnificent German Shepherd leaned contentedly against his leg, still alert, still protective, still the finest partner he'd ever known, and the most loyal friend his family could ask for. "That's exactly right, sweetheart. Real heroes are never actually broken. Sometimes they just need someone special to remind them who they truly are deep inside." The video of that perfect moment, a father, a daughter, and an extraordinary dog who had saved them all while bringing justice to an entire city, would be shared millions more times across the internet. But for Mike Sullivan, the only audience that truly mattered was already complete and whole for the first time in years, standing together in the golden sunlight. Today, Rex wasn't just the savior of dozens of people anymore. He had become living proof that courage, when combined with love, justice, and unshakable determination, could overcome even the darkest corruption and most systematic cruelty. And sometimes that kind of triumph represents the most heroic achievement of all.